I intend to continue the air war against the English homeland more intensively. The German Air Force is to overcome the British Air Force with all means at its disposal.
German military intelligence estimated that the RAF had only 300 fighter aircraft left, concentrated in the south of England. The Luftwaffe seemed on the brink of achieving the air superiority needed for a seaborne invasion of Britain. It was a grossly over-optimistic assessment, but it was exactly what Goring wanted to hear. The Luftwaffe was now expected to smash British fighter strength in a series of massive assaults, beginning on the 13th of August, codenamed Adlertag, Eagle Day. The day scheduled for the start of the attack dawned with cloud and mist over the channel. Goring postpones the assault, but the order fails to reach some units. Already in the air, they do not receive the recall signal. Bomber formations fly towards England without their fighter escorts. The RAF are waiting. Angered by the muddled start of the campaign, Goring orders the attack to go ahead after all. There is heavy fighting over southern England. But Goring is determined to launch a properly coordinated attack as soon as the weather permits. August the 15th dawns fine and clear. 3 vast air fleets, over 2,500 German aircraft, prepare to make the attack that will finally wipe out Fighter Command. For Goring, the decisive day of the air campaign was at hand. From the High Command in Berlin to the Luftwaffe airfields in France, confidence was high. But most pilots were unconcerned with grand strategy.
Wenn ich mich recht erinnere, sollen da also 1600 Einsätze geworden sein. Wir haben das gar nicht so besonders empfunden. Es war schon ein Großeinsatz, aber wir haben das nicht so als Adlertag oder Eagle Day gesehen, sondern war eben ein ganz normaler Einsatz mit etwas mehr Flugzeugen.
The plan was simple. Bombers would strike at RAF airfields, aircraft factories, and war-essential infrastructure. Massed fighter escorts would fly high above the bombers, attacking with the advantage of height when RAF fighters attempted to intercept the bombers. At 11:30 a.m., Ju-87 Stuka dive bombers with a heavy escort of Me-109s crossed the channel and attacked the forward airfields of Lymph, Hawkinge, and Manston. 54 Squadron Spitfires are scrambled, alongside Hurricanes from the 501 Squadron. These units will be in almost constant action over the following days. But the dive bombers hit buildings and hangars, and sever the cables carrying power to 3 of the radar stations on the Kent coast. There is now a blind spot in the warning system. With the Luftwaffe command convinced that British fighter strength is now concentrated in the south, it sends Air Fleet 5, based in Norway, across the North Sea. The fleet of Heinkel bombers head towards the northeast coast of Britain. Confident there will be no opposition, they fly without Me-109 fighter escort. But the British radar stations that face out across the North Sea have registered their approach. The information is passed to the fighter squadrons of 13 Group. As the German bombers approach the Tyneside coast, the weather is fine and clear. Spitfire pilots of 72 Squadron, vectored into position by ground control, spot the Heinkel bombers as they approach. From a perfect attack position, the Spitfires strike, diving out of the sun. Hurricanes from 79 and 605 Squadrons join the fray. desperation, the bombers jettison their bombs and turn back towards their distant bases. German air gunners fight back desperately, hammering away with their 7.9mm machine guns as swarms of British fighters buzz past at 300 miles per hour. They could be brutally effective, as some were to discover.
I can recall one bomber interception. In this particular instance, the bombers were coming in and we were at right angles. I turned in with my flight and told the CO I was going ahead on attack, and then I'd go round to the rear. We knocked down 2 in the head-on attack and went round to the rear, and I went in after my third one. I went in really close, and I went in sort of 150 yards or so, and of course he got me.
Severely mauled, with 30 aircraft lost and many badly damaged, Air Fleet 5's participation in the Battle of Britain was over. 13 groups' casualties suffered only 3 damaged fighters. But over southern England, meanwhile, a more finely balanced battle was raging. As German bombers in the northeast struggled back to their bases, more German aircraft gathered over the Pas de Calais to launch raid after raid across the Channel. Bombers, escorted by large numbers of 109s, strike at targets throughout southeast England. RAF fighters battle to break up incoming bomber formations, but cannot penetrate the massive fighter escort. The bombers reach their targets. The airfield at RAF Martlesham is bombed and put out of action. Further raids sweep in, swamping 11 groups' ground controllers.
2239, 2239.
But still, each incoming raid is met by heavily outnumbered RAF fighters, attempting to hit the bomber formations. To the west, large formations of aircraft are detected heading for Portland and Southampton. Squadrons from 10 Group rise to meet them. Nearly 150 fighters throw themselves at the Luftwaffe formations as fighting spreads along the English coast.
Knowing what the hell was happening in the sky around me, I just did not know. I hadn't seen anything. I didn't know what had been happening. Then all of a sudden, the sky was full of things with black crosses on them. And we exploded like a bomb and went in every direction imaginable, trying to avoid them.
It became a 1-to-1. After all, you were attacking an enemy aircraft, or he was attacking you, in which case you were trying to get out of his way. But if you were attacking him, you concentrated on him. And of course, he was going all over the sky trying to evade you. And you all, apart from the two of you, you got separated from everybody else.
I thought, well, this is it. And I turned my guns on, I fired at him, and he turned over and dived down towards the sea. This is fantastic, because before we went up, I was absolutely convinced that I would be killed. I always reckoned I was one of the worst pilots in the squadron. And having shot something down myself, I thought, this is something. But as I followed him down, another bomb got behind me and started shooting at me, but he was a terrible shot, and he never hit me at all.
The fighting over the Solent and Portland is fierce. 2 Hurricane squadrons scrambled from Exeter are heavily engaged. Losses on all sides are heavy. After an afternoon of furious and continual combat, the Luftwaffe launched their final raids of the day against airfields at Croydon and West Malling. The Luftwaffe had used almost 2,000 aircraft in repeated sorties in their effort to destroy fighter command in the air and on the ground. They have caused considerable damage to RAF airfields and facilities, but have suffered heavily in the process. The Luftwaffe loss rate was so high on this day that German air crews would refer to it as Black Thursday.